Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I'm here to announce a poetry readathon. A few months back, my good friend Charlie of Charlie Brook Reads and I got to talking about how this is National Poetry Writing Month or Global Poetry Writing Month. There's a lot going on with poetry at the moment. It also came from wishing to promote my poetry collection, Shepherd's Delight, and then everything kind of changed a bit. Therefore, we decided that what we were going to do instead is create a readathon that just celebrates poetry, that if you don't read much poetry, then all you have to do to participate is read one poem, or you don't necessarily have to read a full collection. This readathon is about looking at the poetry that's out there and perhaps finding poetry that suits you and exploring that avenue of your reading or your listening. Maybe you'll even go and attend a poetic open mic after this. This readathon is running for 1 week from the 22nd of April. The prompts that we have for this, of which Charlie has created a bingo card, which we will be sharing to our community tabs. But if you go to her Instagram page as well, there's something that you can do with the stories and everything. I'm not technological, but Charlie is. Apart from one prompt, for the most part, each of these prompts is asking you to read one poem. You can go to the poetry directory to look for poems suited to this theme. You can just search in Google for poems suited to a specific theme. There are a lot of resources and I will be leaving links to them in the description as well for you to go out and explore poetry to its fullest potential. The Poetry Society also has fantastic resources on their website and some great poems indeed on there, so I'll leave links to them as well. The first prompt that we have is a prize winner. That's it. And the reason we're saying this is, one, because you can usually find the prize winners of these poetical prizes quite easily online. So just doing a search will find that for you. To get a bit classical, we're going to ask you to read a sonnet. I've heard that there is something about there being more of a modern sonnet nowadays that avoids iambic pentameter and getting so Shakespearean. And there is this whole thing about what makes a sonnet and the different sorts of sonnets. And as somebody who doesn't much go in for form, I couldn't help you there. However, I did create a writing workshop last year in which we discussed a lot of sonnets. And if you want to see which sonnets were on there, I will include that document somewhere which just has a few sonnets on there and you can go through and you can read them. Then we have nature. I wanted this prompt on here simply because of how much nature has been an inspiration to me, and there are some fantastic poems about the natural world out there. However, Charlie's going to say to you that as long as the book has a tree on the cover, then that's fine. As I said, I'm not expecting you to read a whole ton of poetry. I just want you to read one poem per prompt here, apart from a prompt, as I say, that we'll get to later on. Then the next one is to watch a poet perform. The reason that I thought it was important for this is because poetry is often written to be performed, and when you see poems performed, you can usually get a different take and you get to hear the way that the poet wished for the poem to be presented. It gives a different nuance to the tale and it can help you understand it better. I'm not saying that you have to leave the house. You don't have to go to an open mic. You don't have to go and seek out the poets down the pub and hope for the best. Although, you know, there are some fantastic slam poets out there, some fantastic performance poets, great people indeed. There's a lot of poetry available. Some fantastic poets are reading their own work on YouTube. Button Poetry, if it still exists, I will leave a link to them as well. That's all I want you to do, is just go and watch a poet perform and then try something new. Now, that's easy, really. I'm not like saying if you usually read villanelles, go and read a pantoum, or if you do only read poems in form, check out free verse. If you only read free verse, then go to something that rhymes. If you just find a poet that's new to you, then that's perfectly fine. If you find one that you enjoy, even better. The next prompt is pre-1950, just to read a poem that came out before 1950. It was a different world pre-1950. You have several thousand war poems. You have the poems from the Victorian age. You could go to Christina Rossetti, one of my favourites. You could go to Wilfred Owen. You could read some of Thomas Hardy's poetry. Thomas Hardy's poetry I really enjoyed when I was at school. I've not read it since. His novels I didn't get on with as much. I might revisit them now I'm older. I had a long-standing adoration of Far From the Madding Crowd when I was younger, but here, poetry. Poetry. Don't fall down traps and rabbit holes like me with Thomas Hardy just then. Just something from pre-1950. Here's the prompt where you can't just read one poem. Well, you could, but what I want you to do is read a poetry collection. You can, if you're in the UK, usually go into your library, go to the literature section. You could go to your shelves. There might be some poetry there that you've been meaning to get to for a while. Have a go. When you're looking at a collection as opposed to a singular poem, you can consider why the poet chose these poems. What is the general theme running throughout them? Why did they collate them in such a manner? Then I've said a modern poem. I'm saying I, but Charlie and I put these together. So we are saying a modern poem. And considering I said pre-1950 before, I'm guessing that anything from 1950 to now, which is 74 years, that doesn't seem modern enough. No, I'm not going to say 74 years. You can have your 74 years if you want them, but let's try and find some newer poets around here. Let's look for some modern poets. See what the people are talking about today. Pretty easy. You could go and you could look at any poetry journals, most recent work. If we're doubling up on things and we're looking at prize winners, you could go to the National Poetry Competition's prize winner, and then you've killed two birds with one stone. You've read a modern prize winner. And then Charlie has done a free prompt for a bingo card where you can just read anything that you like, as long as it is poetry. And we're going to be free and loose with what poetry means nowadays. Anyway, them's the prompts, and that is the Poetry Readathon as hosted by myself and Charlie Brooke Reads. There won't be many events for it. I don't think there's going to be a live show or anything like that. It's just a very nice, relaxed thing about trying to get people to read and enjoy poetry alongside us. You will be getting a few poetry recommendations and what have you from us along the way. But if you want to check in with us on social media, we are just going to be having the hashtag Poetry Readathon, I believe. As I say, the technological social media aspect is all to do with Charlie of Charlie Brooke Reads. I'm just here to be grumpy and tell you to read poetry. That's it. That's your one thing to do for the end of this month. Read one poem a day. You could bash all of these prompts out in a singular day if you wanted. I mean, kudos to you if you managed to find a poem that encapsulates everything there. I know that you won't, because we want you to read something pre-1950 and something modern. But otherwise, it's a free-for-all, really. But yes, if you will be joining us in the Poetry Readathon, then please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, if you've got some poetry resources, if you've got some favourite poets, let me know about them as well. Let's have this great, brilliant discussion about poetry. Let's share and delight in the poetical form, because it's fun. And yeah, I hope to see you joining in with us as we read poetry at the end of the month, because until next time, that is all.